Hello and welcome to Game of Thrones, the podcast where we are rewatching Game of Thrones an episode at a time and pulling it to pieces like a direwolf with a piece of meat. I am Chris Bolton. With me, as always, our very own mountain, Mr. Mark Williams.
Hello.
And we're back in the swing of things. Season 3, Episode 2, Dark Wings, Dark Words. Now, first of all, I have an issue with this title.
Right.
Before we go any further. What did I miss something, or what are the wings exactly?
The Ravens.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I missed something then. I was expecting dragons.
No, so it was mentioned. We talked about it last week. Very close to the end of the episode, and I think we were probably a bit loopy by then. But yeah, I think it's in the books. It's not in the episode itself. But it's based on apparently it's a saying in world whereby it refers to the fact that they bring bad news.
I fucking completely missed that. It shows how much attention I was paying last week.
Yeah, I think by the end of last week,
we were pissed off, and I did say I practically fell asleep in last week's episode, so it's quite possible that I did. I don't know. But yeah, it completely passed me by. Okay, then, I'll forgive him that one. I will eat my hat, or I would if I was wearing one.
Well, why aren't you wearing one?
Because I have hair.
But no, just for an occasion such as this, you should be wearing a hat.
I guess
he's not wearing a hat and has very little fucking hair left.
I'm not wearing a hat, or I'm not wearing I'm not wearing shoes. I'm not wearing shoes, so I'm not wearing anything that I can eat. I guess I could eat my shirt or my shorts. There you go. I could eat my shorts. Yeah. Anyway, moving swiftly on. Yeah. First note I've got. I know I've mentioned this before, right? But these credits are fucking ridiculous now. 1 minute and 54 seconds these fucking credits go on for.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy because the skip button on the TV app on iPad, you can skip in 15-second increments. So I can just hit it, and I know that in 8 I'm at the start of the episode.
Right, okay.
They are fucking ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, but the thing is, they vary a little bit from week to week as well, depending on how big the cast is going to be.
To be fair, they don't vary enough for me to want to give a fuck and sit through them for 2 minutes.
I really don't give a fuck about them at all. Like, the first time something new is added, the first time you get a new model, it's cool, because you go like, look, there's a new model. And then it's just the same ad infinitum, plus that theme, as...
So fucking boring.
Yeah, innit? Like, it is just the same repeated strain over and over and over again, isn't it?
There's you do get a flourish towards the middle. I mean, I've got to be honest, the only time I've ever actually wanted to watch the credits was I'd heard anecdotally at the start of the first episode of season 8, because at the end of season 7 you have the big thing that happens to the big place, which I'm not going to say because of spoilers. That was then replicated in the credits.
Yes.
So yeah. I looked out for that. Afterwards, could not give two fucks. Now, maybe in the very last episode, there's some stuff that I could have seen as well, which I'll find out when we get there, if I remember. But yeah, generally, I don't give two fucks about the credits, and I just skip through them. And you normally come in just on the point where it says who's written or directed it, and I normally go, oh, okay, oh, fuck these idiots again.
Yeah, that's 90% of the time, to be honest. But yeah, these credits really starting to fucking piss me off now, which is stupid because, yeah, I have it on disc and I can skip them, but I don't. Same as I don't skip the end credits, so I guess that's my own fucking fault, innit?
Yeah.
But there you go. Anyway, I just thought it sort of was worth mentioning. They are nearly 2 minutes long now at this point, which is fucking ridiculous.
I think they always were. I think they were always about the minute 50, 2 minutes mark.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no need for that.
No.
That's what your end credits are for.
Yeah, exactly. So, they're out of the way. And we get, I think, a good opening scene this week. We get stuff with the Ravens and what have you. But more than anything, it's just nice to see all the Stark boys together having a bit of a joke and just reminding us that actually this is a family, but because they're so separated now.
Yeah, in the show, and so much water's gone under the bridge as well.
Yeah, and it gets referenced, especially in Rob's storyline, time and time again, or my sister or my brother or whatever, and with John we get reference to Ned and things, and it gets referenced, but because they've spent so little screen time together now in the grand scheme of things over the course of these 2 and a bit seasons now.
Yeah, well, practically none, to be honest.
Yeah, you kind of forget that, there is actually an emotional hook and an emotional connection there, and actually when they're all together, they do bounce off each other. It's a nice scene, and there's some warmth to it, which is fucking rare in this show.
Yeah, I quite liked it as well. I mean, so you come in and you get, it's the old direwolf cam again. So you're going through the woods, which is it's not cold and bleak and snowy anymore. It's nice and lush and it's nice and green. And then you come up and you've got Bran running around with a bow and arrow. And Bran, at some point between the end of season 2 and the beginning of season 3, he's grown like a foot.
Yeah, I mean, I've got that note as well. I think maybe he's part dragon or something.
Well, maybe. I mean, I know puberty's a bitch, but no, he seems to have shot up in like the 2 months they weren't filming.
Yeah,
he looks a hell of a lot older.
Visibly aged. There's got to be some dragon blood in him because we've now got Teenage Mutant Ninja Bran as well. But yeah, he's visibly grown. And I remember first time out. This isn't the first time he'll visibly grow either. I remember first time out watching this storyline, which has the youngest of the kids. How. We talked about these timelines and we talked about it quite some length last week with the dragons.
Yeah.
And this is just another example of that. I know it's difficult because obviously when you cast a young child, they are going to age. See also the Harry Potter films. But it's just, especially when the timeline is so all over the shop as it is anyway, it doesn't help when you see things like this.
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, later on in the episode, we see Hot Pie as well. And I thought Hot Pie had aged about 5 years.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's difficult because, I mean, Judd Dempsey's that much older, so he doesn't seem to age as much. And Maisie Williams didn't seem to age that much in the first couple of seasons. It's only probably the last 2 seasons where she kind of exploded and went, oh, fucking hell. All of a sudden, again, she's grown a bit and she's, her face sort of changes and her shape changes. But I thought with Hot Pie as well, he's a bit stockier and it's almost as if he's sort of started to grow a bit. You think, talking about the kids in the Harry Potter film, think of Matthew Lewis, who played Neville. He was a dumpy, fat kid, a short, dumpy kid. And he grew up to, by the time he got to the last film, which is 7 years in story time, but was, I think, 11 years in film time, possibly, he'd grown up into a very well-built young man. And it's almost like Hot Pie started going on that route and go, fuck, we're not having that, eat. And just started filling in with cake.
Yeah, that is the most middle-aged woman description of a young man I've ever heard. He's quite a well-built young man. I just feel like you need some knitted needles and pull your glasses down off your nose for that one.
I can't knit while we're recording because the clicking will fuck everybody off.
I guess so, yeah.
That's the only reason I haven't got them.
Yeah, that was, you very much sounded like a dirty grandma there. Well done.
Yeah, if that's the worst thing, actually that's not the worst thing I've been called today, so fuck it, I don't care.
Oh wow, what's the worst thing you've been? No, I don't want to know.
I'll tell you off air.
Yeah, forget it. So yeah, this scene's quite nice. But then what the fuck is the cut at the end of the scene to Rob? Like,
yeah, it's weird.
Yuck. It's disgusting.
I don't know. I mean, I was watching this. I watched it at lunchtime, and it's one of those. Sometimes these things catch me, sometimes they don't. And it did catch me. I sort of wound it back 15 seconds and watched it again, and I can't work out what it is that bugs me about it.
I can't either, but it's very jarring, isn't it?
It just seems off.
I'm not sure if it's because he's in the prior scene as well.
Maybe.
And then when he cuts, it's a reverse when he cuts because he's always facing screen right when he's shot in the opening scene, and then when we first see him, and it cuts from into a close up from what was a wide shot, and then when we cut in, he's facing screen left, so it could be that.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, yes, it's something bugged me. I watched it twice and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. And I figured I've only got an hour and it's an hour episode, so I need to kind of get on with it. But yeah, I just couldn't work out what it was. But yeah, it was odd. I mean, the other thing to say with the previous scene before we move on, we do get our first look at Jojen, who's going to be quite important. And again, talking of kids growing up, that's the kid from Love Actually who was about fucking 3. Yeah, that's a bit worrying.
Yeah. We get to meet them properly later on in the episode, but yeah, it's teased here and it's set up quite well. actually, for when he shows up later on. It's all kind of seeded here, and yeah, it works well. This episode's off, I think, to a pretty good start. And aside from the cut, the next scene with Rob and Kat is also good. I mean, as we say many times on this show, when the two of them are together, or whenever Kat's with any of the Starks, she's always good, and this is no exception. Her performance on hearing about what's happened to Winterfell is excellent.
And the fact that her father has died, and there's a lot of character comes out in this scene again, and there's another scene later on with what's her name? Her now daughter-in-law, whose name I can't fucking remember. The nurse.
The nurse. I've written in my notes several times the nurse because I can never remember her name either.
Yeah, but there's a lovely scene between the two of those later as well. Excellent
scene, yeah. But just on that, something that's worth mentioning. We gloss over it there and say we can never remember her name.
Yeah.
There'll be a reason for that, and that's a bad thing. Like that. That's how sort of disposable a character she is, I guess. We can't even remember her fucking name.
Talisa or Talisa. I've got it in front of me.
It.
But it's written, so I don't know how it's pronounced. But yeah, you're right. She has a very memorable part to play in Robb Stark's story. But yeah, fucking remember her name from week to week.
Yeah,
and to be honest, I mean, so we didn't see her last week. It's been 6 weeks since we did. It was 7 weeks from the time we did the end of season 2. I'd forgotten what she looked like, so I didn't even realize who the fuck Kat was talking to. To be honest, it took me about a second to realize who she was.
I wasn't that bad. I knew who she was. As I said, I don't actually dislike her character, as I said last season either. I just feel like she just kind of doesn't have anything to offer.
Yeah,
really.
She's just kind of bland. She's just she's a prop. She's there to advance the story.
Yeah, that's exactly what she is. She's in service of the story, but nevertheless, she's there.
When she's there, she's good, and I think her performances are always good. And say that the scene with Kat in this episode is fantastic. But yeah, I mean, the problem is she's ultimately forgettable, and that's not what you want.
No, it really isn't. But yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about her in that scene when we get to it. So yeah, as I say, this scene I think is great with Kat and Robin. There's some stuff here as well where she's asking if she's going to be in chains. Which and it's good stuff. It's a good scene. But more importantly, moving on to the next scene, here he is, everybody's favorite cunt. It's Theon fucking Greyjoy. But more importantly, it's Theon fucking Greyjoy being tortured. Fuck you, Theon. Suffer, you little prick.
Well, that's it. I mean, it follows on because in the previous scene we get Kat. I think it's Roose comes in with two ravens. And he asks which one's the good news and which one's the bad. No, they're both bad. And we hear that Winterfell has been razed to the ground. They've burnt out the castle. The Iron Islanders are all fucked off. There's no sign of Theon or Bran or Rickon. And everybody, they're kind of fearing the worst. And we don't know, because obviously we know that Bran and Rickon escaped with Osher and Hodor a couple of episodes ago. And the last time we saw Theon, somebody twatted him over the head with a big stick and left him at Winterfell. So we have no idea what happened. We have no idea, at this point, we have no idea where he is. We don't know if these are the Iron Islanders, if these are Ramsay Bolton's people who've gone, who were sent back to Winterfell to retake it.
I was going to say, isn't there a throwaway line about Ramsay going back to Winterfell?
Yeah, they said by the time he got there, they'd raised the castle to the ground and there was no sign of anybody. So, I mean, that's the throwaway line. So we've not seen Ramsay at this point, have we? We've only seen Roose. So the fact you get this throwaway line, but we don't know who the hell these people are who are now holding Theon. And he's all trussed up like an S&M dungeon. And part of you's thinking he's actually going to enjoy it because he's that much of a cunt. And then you get, he's clearly scared. You get a guy, you get a sort of soft focus, and it's sort of, it blurs in because his eyes are closed and wrestling. The vision of the guy blurs in. What do you want? I want to do this, and he sticks a fucking nail in his thumb. And I thought, you know what? Fuck you, you ginger cunt. Have a bit of that.
Absolutely. Here's the thing. I'm very glad that Theon is being tortured. I'll quite happily watch it, but, and I do mention it later on as well, even with it being Theon, this is literally torture porn. Like
It
this is hard to fucking watch.
It is, and it's worse later with the corkscrew, but we'll get to that.
Oh yeah, it really is. And
that
like,
made me squirm a little bit. I've got to be honest.
And look, if that was the intention, then good job, high marks. Personally, I feel like
it's unnecessary.
It's totally unnecessary. We could have just suggested that, surely.
We could have suggested and had the camera move away, or there are a million techniques they could have used to not show it and have it screaming off screen. But then again, we wouldn't have see Theon suffer.
Yeah, and also this is Game of Thrones.
Yeah, like, subtlety's not a thing in this world. But yeah, it's kind of like watching Hostel. It's gross for the sake of being gross.
Yeah,
and it
absolutely.
gets worse later on with the fucking corkscrew. That really did upset me.
Not pleasant. So yeah, I mean, it's a short scene, but yeah, great. Theon can fucking suffer. And then we're into I think what is probably the best stuff in this episode. Jamie and Brienne, and Jamie especially, is fucking great in this episode.
Have we missed the throwaway scene with Manson John, or was that later?
I think that's a bit later, isn't it?
Sorry, I thought it was very early on, but yeah, it might be later. I can't remember. I don't make notes on this one. I just kind of watch
maybe it is. I remember. I don't think I actually did make notes on it because it is
such a short scene. It's so
throwaway. Yeah, it is literally just to remind you where John is.
Yeah, I think, and the fact that he is probably in mortal peril.
So maybe I did miss it. I don't know.
I think it's very early, but again, he gets like 3 lines. Egret gets a line. Mance gets 2 lines, and that's it.
Yeah, and then the next notes I've got is about Jamie and Brienne. Jamie is just on top form in this episode, just knowing exactly what buttons to push and when.
He's prime dickhead.
He's so good at it, though, isn't he?
Yes. He is.
He's such a charming dickhead, is the thing.
Oh, this is the thing. He's every bit the villain, and he's revered and feared and all the rest. He is everything that people like Theon want to be, but he can pull it off, whereas they just fuck it up or come across as cunts.
And he's also shown, towards the end of the episode to be, and you don't see him fight that often in the show, but he is every bit the swordsman that his legend speaks of. He should be feared.
And the fact that his hands are bound and he still manages to, he can still hold his own in a fight, right up until the point where she Darth Vaders him, and she's just single-handed, just overpowering him, knocks him down, and then we don't get a chance to see her subdue him because other people come in, but we'll get to that later on. But I mean, everything with them, everything with them from the first time we see them on screen together, right the way through to their last scene, there are very few things you can fault. I mean, there are a couple of choices towards the end, towards season 8, which I disagree with, but we can come to that when we come to it. But anytime they're together, the performances are always spot on, and it's you just believe that Jamie is as fucking arrogant as he's portrayed to be, and he just everything he says has an angle. It's designed to penetrate armor. It's designed to hurt. It's designed to sting to a point where it provokes a reaction, be it a good reaction, a bad reaction. It's a reaction, and he's just fucking brilliant at it, and he's probably the best in the show at it, to be honest, with the possible exception of Tyrion.
I would agree, and it gets softened as the show goes on because his character changes.
Yes.
But it's kind of always there with him. Like I've said all along, he's always kind of true north. He has his objective, and he will do whatever it takes to get to his objective. Yeah. And sometimes he may be an ally, and sometimes he may be an enemy. It's just all about what his objective is. And here, his objective is to charm Brienne to such an extent that she lowers her guard. And it starts immediately without him even really saying much when he's having a piss.
Yeah.
And just makes a point. And it's very, very throwaway. But he makes a point to wave his cock around just enough that she sneaks a peek.
Yes.
And it's a very, very quick glance, and it's right at the end of the scene, but she does sneak a peek, and it's hilarious. So she sneaks a peek, and then he starts immediately, once he knows that he's got her, he starts pushing buttons, and we probably get, as distasteful as it is, we probably get one of my favourite lines of the episode where they're discussing how he comes to end up being with Brienne, and they're talking about Renly, and he sort of says, "It's such a shame the throne isn't made out of cocks."
Yes. Especially the throwing up Mary Cox that had never got him off it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Genius,
it's
absolute.
tasteful, but it's fucking hilarious. I've got
Yeah,
to, I've got to give him credit for that. Um, so yeah, and her performance in reaction to it as well is great. She tries her best not to rise to it, and then when they see the merchant or the trader or whatever he is,
yeah,
and again Jamie just ratchets it up straight away, starts pushing the buttons even more, where he's saying like, look, he knows who I am.
yeah,
You need to kill him or we're in trouble.
yeah,
Like, you have to do it. And we get this performance from her, which the camera just locks off on her eyes. And we've mentioned before in this show how good the cast are at saying a lot without saying anything. And this is one of those examples. Her performance here is magnificent when it just locks on her eyes and she's just fighting back tears almost, because she knows he's fucking right.
yes,
She knows he is, but she doesn't want to kill this merchant because it's not an honorable thing to do, and B, she doesn't want to give him the rise. So she really has to push it down, even though she knows it's going to cost her and she knows it's wrong. I
mean, this is probably the first. Well, it is the first of certainly two missteps that she makes in this episode, and there'll be a couple more throughout throughout this season. But this is the first one. She knows, let's say, she knows she has to kill this guy, but chooses not to because it's the honourable thing to do, and also because it would mean that Jamie's right, and she doesn't want to admit that because she recognizes he has a point, and she knows that she can't show weakness. If she starts showing that actually he knows what she's thinking and that they kind of having the same thoughts, she's already lost.
Yes.
So she doesn't. So she betrays herself in that respect. And then we get it later on again. He's constantly goading about, do we try and swim across the river or do we cross the bridge? If we cross the bridge, somebody's going to see us, we're going to get captured. If we try and swim across, we might drown. Which is it going to be? And he's always pushing buttons with it. And that's when we get the misstep later on, where again he ends up freeing himself and they end up fighting. And yeah, it's out of character for her, and it's just very it's so infrequent you see her getting rattled like this, and he's the only person who ever manages it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's why it's so affecting as well. Like, we so rarely see any kind of real outward emotion from Brienne. She practically is, I mean, she's a knight. She practically is a fucking robot. She lives and dies by her word and her sword, and she's not interested in anything else. She has a charge and a mission, and she's loyal, but there's real emotion on her face here. She is troubled, and like you say, I think Jamie's one of the very few people that's able to get under her skin like that.
Yeah, I don't from memory. I don't think, I may be proved wrong as we go along, but I don't think anybody else does.
No, and I think that's credit to both their characters and both performances. I think it's as much about Brienne as it is about Jamie, and they really are just magnificent together. They're always entertaining to watch, and this episode just really goes to town on them. I hadn't realized, I remember a great deal of everything that happens with the two of them in this episode. And I remember it very, very fondly. I hadn't realized it was this episode that all of this happened in until I started watching it. And then
I thought it was a bit later.
Yes, so did I. But I remember a great deal of this episode for very positive reasons that we're talking about now. And to be fair, I've already at this point decided that this is a better episode than last week's, just from the opening couple of scenes.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a reason for that, and that's because Dick Face and Ballbag didn't write it.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, it was Vanessa Taylor who did a couple of better ones last season.
Yeah, and there are numerous reasons then why in her hands this is a better episode, and I'm sure we'll come to those when we sum up and as we go through. But I'd already decided I liked the episode, and then as soon as I knew that this was the episode where we get all the Jamie and Brienne stuff, and particularly where we get the fight with them, which we'll get to when we get to it, I was like, oh, okay, cool, I'm really going to enjoy this now, and I enjoyed this a hell of a lot more than last week. But as I say, we'll come to that as we sum up. So I mean, moving on, because there's a lot of great stuff to get to with them later on as well. We get a relatively short scene, but still a very important and a very good one, I think, between Joffrey and Cersei. Cersei's, great, as she always is. But Joffrey's really starting to come into his own as
Yeah.
a real rival for Theon in the cuntiest cunt stakes. But he's so fucking brave here as well. Like, this is the bravest. I don't know whether he's brave or stupid, but if it's bravery, this is the bravest I think we've ever seen him. Where I know he's drunk with power, but the extent to which he answers her back, it goes. I mean, it starts off with just petulant teenager where.
But let's be fair, it's no more than any other 14-year-old boy.
No, and this is the thing. This is the thing. He very much is petulant teenager, but he's a petulant teenage king.
Yes.
When he said when she's trying to talk to him and again just maybe trying to make him squirm a little bit at the same time as trying to find out what he's feeling. Where she's talking about Marjorie and he just sort of brushes it off, just like a moody teenager was. Where he says, this is becoming one of the most boring conversations I've ever had.
Yeah.
I mean, it's typical moody teenager, but that Cersei, Christ, he's brave. There's only one other character I could think of would talk to her like that, and he's a damn sight smarter than Joffrey is.
But I think the thing is that Tyrion will talk to her like that because he knows of, yes, she's dangerous, but he can outthink it. Joffrey will talk to her like that because Joffrey's never seen a side. No, he's never seen that malicious, ruthless side of her that everybody else knows because she's his mother, and all he will have seen is the soft woman who brought him up while his father was off whoring around. He wouldn't know any better. He wouldn't know to fear her. Whereas, as you say, he's now drunk on power and thinking he's untouchable. So actually, this stupid woman who just happens to be in the same room as him, what the fuck we're going to listen to her for?
Yeah, and she gives him a very measured look after he delivers it as well. Like she's on the edge with him here.
She mind your fucking tongue, boy. Again, if he weren't the king, like if that'd been my mother at that, when I was that age, I'd have had a fucking hiding for that.
Good God, yeah. I would never have spoken to my mother like that at that age.
I'm nearly 40 and I still wouldn't.
Yeah, even being a petulant teenager, she'd have fucking kicked me up and down the street.
Yeah, exactly.
No chance. And then, then he doubles down on it as well, where she starts talking more about Marjorie and how intelligent she is and how clever she is, and his response. And oh God, this episode was going so well, and I guess you're allowed to get away with it in character because he's probably the only person that could get away with it at this point. But the response of intelligent women do what they're told.
Yeah.
Ouch. I guess.
The woman wrote it.
I know. Did she?
No, that's got fucking. That's got the Wonder Twins written all over it.
Yeah, it really has, or possibly even it might be from the source. I don't know, but it feels very Game of Thrones. It feels very much their attitude towards women. But look, I guess Joffrey can get away with it because he's, like I said, rivaling Theon at this point, almost in cuntiest cunt stakes. Yeah. He's not there. I don't think he ever actually gets there. But
I think
it's a different kind. It's a different kind of cunt, isn't it? Is the thing. He's a less aggressive cunt. He's just a nasty cunt.
Well, that's it. And I think Theon is partly a victim of his circumstances in as much as he is that way because he doesn't know any different, and he's always he has this chip on his shoulder because he was taken by the Starks. His father didn't fight for him. And then when he got back to his father fucked him off again, and his sister mugged him off, and in his mind, he's a victim, so that's why he lashes out and he acts the way he does. And we kind of get that later on when he's been tortured again. And I'll come to that when we get there. But Joffrey doesn't have that. Joffrey is just a spoiled, entitled brat who has seen his father fuck his way around King's Landing and disrespect his mother and disrespect pretty much everybody and do what the fuck he liked, but without the Joffrey sadistic streak. So he's just kind of taking it as a learned behavior. This is how you treat people. This is how you talk to people, especially people who are inferior to you. And you're a king, so everybody's inferior to you. And that's just kind of how he is. So there's not a conscious choice there with him. Whereas with Theon tries, he goes out of his way to be a cunt because he thinks it'll make people stand up and take notice.
Yeah, definitely. It's a different kind of cunt, as we say. So yeah, I mean, he can get away with it, I guess. a lot of that is remedied quite quickly in the next scene as well, though, where we get Shay and Sansa talking to each other. And a great scene between these two. I've said it before as well. They really are good together. And Shay's resolve, when she says to Sansa, she's warning her about Littlefinger, and Sansa's almost not taking it seriously to an extent.
Yeah, we said this last week. Sansa's kind of regressed a bit to where she was the end of season 1 being season 2. She's gone back to being naive, and she's not as world weary and as not battle hardened, but that sort of effect, which she should be. And the way she's been treated by Joffrey and by Cersei, and the fact that they execute their father and all this sort of stuff, she should at this point be going, right, okay, I don't trust any fucker, especially not anybody who comes at me pretending to be my friend, or anybody who's claiming to be acting in my best interest, because chances are they're not. But instead, she's just reverted back to the simpering little girl we had in season 1, who's just looking to get married off to a lord and have babies and all the rest of it. She's not thinking of fighting. She's not thinking of self-preservation at the moment. And and when Shay sort of pulls her up on that, she said, "Oh, no, he's only being nice to me because he used to love my mother." Well, that's sin. No, he's not your father. So the fact he loved your mother will give him an ulterior motive for something. But you're not thinking that way. And so Shay is warning her, but it's almost Shay's a commoner. Okay, no, people don't know she's a whore, but Shay's common. She's not highborn. She's not a lady. So what the fuck does she know? And I'll humour her. I'll let her talk, but actually, I'm not going to listen to a word she says. And yeah, it's disappointing because, Sophie Turner does a very good job, and over the years, her character will evolve very well. But I don't know. I just think there's such a big regression. We've kind of lost an entire season with her, where she actually started doing the character work, and then they've kind of gone, "Oh no, we did that too early. We're not ready for that yet."
Yeah, definitely, and we'll see that more in the next couple of scenes as well. But the crux of the scene, though, I think is quite good. Shay's insistence that even though she's not listening, like Shay's insistence of look, if he does anything to you, if he tries anything, you tell me.
Yeah.
And the absolute conviction of it,
I'll fuck shit up.
Yeah, if he steps out of line, you tell me, and I will fuck him up. I like the two of them together a lot. But moving on, this regression of Sansa kind of continues. When we get, is it here that we get the scene with Olenna? Yeah, it is, isn't it?
So Iron Fist goes together, and then
that's right.
And he takes her outside, and introduces her to Diana Rigg, who
she's just the fucking best, isn't she?
I mean,
she's just the absolute best.
With the exception of the one Bond film she was in, where he married her, I've never seen Diana Rigg put a foot wrong in anything.
No, but especially here, like Olenna's just the fucking best. She's awesome. She is just this battle-hardened, world-weary.
Yeah, she's this old matriarch who you wouldn't fuck with.
Absolutely.
She's the way she is with the way she is with the staff. Do we have to die of starvation, or are you going to bring the food out? I want the cheese. Oh, the cheese is served after the cake. No, the cheese is served when I want it, dickface. Fuck off and get it for me now. She just doesn't care. She's like, no, we're doing it my way because fuck you, I'm old and I've earned it.
I think we all know an Olenna Tyrell, don't we? we all know one, and she nails that matriarch just so well,
absolutely perfectly.
I certainly know where I draw from with her, and she nails that role. She's fantastic, and you've hit the nail on the head. It's just that, look, I am this old now. I've seen some shit in my life. I am in the twilight of my years. I'm this close to death. I do not give a flying fuck what you think of me. I don't care if you were to slit my throat on the spot. This is what I think, and you are going to fucking listen.
Yeah, and you will hear the words I say.
Yeah, and you will bring me my cheese now, god damn it.
Yeah, and God help you if you fucking don't.
She's just the fucking best. Like she's only been in one scene, and she's already rivaling Tyrion as MVP for me. She's just, because again, there's a lot of heavy lifting here. There's some character work that needs to be established. This worry about how Marjorie and Joffrey are gonna fare, and we need to try and get under Sansa's skin a bit as well. And again, it could be quite clumsy.
Yeah.
But she just manages, and she managed to do it in the most direct manner possible, because that's the character and that's how she plays it. She just chucks it all out on the table. Like, look, let's have a conversation, girl. Tell us, like, is he a bastard? Just give it to us, you know. And it's kind of a pointless scene, but it tells you so much about their family specifically and who these characters are and who they're going to be, that it kind of, even though it seems pointless, like, you get good character information from it. Unfortunately, it does frame Sansa again, though, as just this innocent little girl who has no idea what's going on.
I was going to say, I mean, that was my thing with it, is that she starts off, and we saw her in the last season, whereby she did start to show a little bit of savvy. She did start. No, she was saying the right thing, especially when she was asked about Joffrey. She wouldn't speak against him because her father's a traitor, her brother's a traitor, and she's got to tread so carefully. So we saw that where she knew that, and she knew what she was doing, and she starts off like that, and then within like 30 seconds they've broken her, and she's this naive little girl again who is trusting people that she has no reason to trust.
None whatsoever, other than the fact she's got some new gal pals.
Well, yeah, there is that. Even if one of them was like 90.
I think, and I don't know, maybe I draw from personal experience on this, and I guess it depends who your Olenna is. I really do think we all know one, but
definitely.
I think she is just an inherently, for a lot of people anyway, if you're a genuinely good and well-meaning person, I think she is a character that you would just inherently trust and feel safe with, because she's so matriarchal, and because she's so, in a world where everybody's scheming and everybody's got an end game. Like, whilst she's no different, we all know that she wants Marjorie on the throne. She doesn't hide that at all, ever. She just and look, she plays an absolutely wonderful fucking game, as we find out. But she's never anything other than open and honest, I don't think. I think if anybody had asked her at any point, and I'm cautious of spoilers, if anybody had come out and flat out asked her the question, she'd have answered it honestly.
Of course she would have.
Well, as she does, like, in a roundabout way. Like, I think she's able to bring that out of people, and especially if Sansa's in this vulnerable place and ultimately needs a mother. Which is where that relationship with Cersei started to come in season 1, and then soured. Like, that was all a very maternal relationship as well. And so all of a sudden, here's this grandmother figure that she can almost be taken under her wing and accepted, if you like, into this family with Marjorie as a kind of big sister and her as a grandmother. I can see it. I just think it's maybe a little bridge too far. She didn't have to regress quite so much.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's. I mean, I can't remember enough of her arc in this season. I remember it as a whole, but I can't remember where certain things happened. But yeah, it's just that they're breaking her now, so that when the biggest fuckery happens, and you feel the most sympathy for her, it's almost as though they have broken a child, where she was starting to grow up, she was starting to get a bit more worldly wise and a bit more understanding. Then all of a sudden, they kind of needed her to be less so. And so they've gone, we'll just kind of knock her back a few pegs. And if we don't reference it, nobody's going to notice. They'll just kind of assume that she's the same as she was at the end of season 1, and we'll just ignore all the personal growth we had in season 2.
That's pretty much the Game of Thrones way. But there you go.
If we don't tell people, they won't notice.
No. So yeah, I mean, that's about all there is to say about the scene, really. I think is that it regresses Sansa, which is unfortunate, but it introduces Olenna, who is just a fucking best. She really is. We move on. Some direwolves. There's a lot of fucking direwolves in this episode. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
We see a lot of direwolves here. And this is where we get the scene with Kat, and I've written here the nurse. Yeah. I've forgotten her name again already.
Salisa.
There you go, Kat and her. It's good. as we said, it is good. It's just the right side of awkward. I think the performance from both of
Yeah.
them. It's just the right side of, well, we don't really know each other, but we're kind of related now. But I've done some shit, so we probably don't like each other that much. But for my son's sake and your husband's sake, we kind of better find some common ground here. And they are very much dancing around each other and feeling each other out.
Yeah.
And I think they convey that expertly, both of them. The scene plays very, very well. Especially the kind of, Kat's instant snapping at her and then stepping that back straight away.
Yeah.
You can't help me because I'm not being horrible. There's a reason that you can't help me.
I can do this because only I am a mother. You're not a mother, so you can't do this task because it's a mother's task. And it starts off where it's very aggressive, it's very sharp, and then she's actually, you know what? I can't be fucking bothered with this. I can't be bothered to fight. You're going to be in my life for a while, so we might as well. I need to go back to being Kat Stark, not being the person I've been driven to lately. And she does step it back, and you get the story about John as a baby and all the rest of it,
which is excellent,
beautiful,
stuff. Really well written, and real good character insight for both of them, for Kat and for John. Because you get to understand a great deal of why John's kind of the way he is and so keen to prove himself. And, he's been danced around before, but why he's so keen to, he can't just go and be anybody in the Night's Watch. He's got to be a ranger. He's got to be important because he never had his mother's love and needs to earn it.
Yeah.
And she has to begrudgingly accept that she is his mother.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked about it in season 1. I think it's the second or third episode. It's the second episode where Ned goes south and he goes north. And there's a look as he's leaving where it's almost like he sort of half smiles at us, saying, no, he's almost saying goodbye. No, I know I'm not going to see you again. And I know you don't particularly like me, but I'm still going to, you're still the nearest thing I've ever had to a mother. And she kind of looks through him. And it's always sort of, again, it's always sort of, it's easy to assume it's because he's a bastard and he's Ned's child with another woman, and he's a constant reminder that Ned was unfaithful. So she doesn't want to like him. She doesn't want to let herself like him, and then this just kind of reinforces that, but it makes her a bit less of a cow, to be honest. Because at the end of the day, it's not. And I think she says it in the episode. She hated him because of who his mother was, which isn't his fault. He never knew her.
No,
and,
but she can't help feeling the way she feels, and so she hates herself for it as well. And then I think
that comes across really well. It's probably the first time we get any real sort of self-loathing of anybody in the show. I mean, you get people who hate other people, and we get people who are slightly dubious of their own talents or their own belonging. But it's the first time you see anybody out and out say, "Look, I did this, and I'm ashamed of myself." Because I mean, this isn't a thing where I did something bad and I'm feeling guilty about it. This is I'm ashamed because I didn't do something bad. I am something bad. I couldn't bring myself to love and nurture a child who was entirely innocent because of the way it made me feel.
Yeah, and I think this show would be greatly elevated if they allowed more characters to question the morality in this way, because so much is said about the politics in this show and the way everybody has their own plot and scheme and the way the politics play. And yes, of course, that's a big part of the show. But how much more interesting would it be if they could all just sit down every once in a while? And some of them are cunts. Yeah. Some of them aren't going to care.
Yeah, some of them are incapable of that sort of introspection.
Yeah, but not all of them. Excuse me. Not all of them. And if they could all question themselves in this way, and some of them do. Tyrion does on the reg, but not to this extent. But you do get soul searching with Tyrion. You get it with Jaime as part of his arc, but again, it's not so well handled. But most of the time, arseholes are arseholes, and that's it. But here she is, and here's somebody who we've already seen many facets of. She's Rob's prisoner at this point because she's basically betrayed him.
Yeah.
But she's done everything she can to protect her family. She's lost her husband. We've seen all of these wonderful facets of her character, but here she is stripped bare. And the writing as well is is excellent. And I get the feeling it's probably from prose. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, you get lines like the one I've written down, which particularly stuck out to me, a beautiful line. All this horror that's come to my family, it's all because I couldn't love a motherless child.
Yeah.
It's probably the most Catholic line in the history of TV.
Yeah.
But there it is, and it doesn't. She manages to play it off in such a way that it isn't heavy-handed, and it could be, you could trip over that line.
Yeah.
But she doesn't. She delivers it with just the right, as you said, just the right level of self-loathing, and it really helps you understand who she is and why she's doing what she does. It's a great scene, and you kind of don't see the scene going there from where it starts. As I say, it's good when it starts. It's good when it starts, and it's awkward. But then to use that kind of awkward bonding to strip Cat Bear, who until this point, as I say, you've seen all sorts of facets of a character, but she's pretty much always been strong. You see her face break now and again when she's on her own, or when she's just with Rob because she's grown comfortable with him because he's a leader now and not just her son, as in earlier in this episode where you see her just start to break when she finds out about Winterfell, but she still doesn't break down.
I was going to say you've seen lots of facets, but you've seen lots of facades and lots of masks. You very rarely see the real Cat, the true Cat. So you do get the odd snippet here and there, but she's always, again, in this sort of true matriarchal style, she's always keeping her shit together for everybody else. She's always very strong, very staunch, very stoic, and occasionally it'll slip a little bit, but she will always recover herself. And then for whatever reason, whatever reason she decides here, there's this absolute fucking brutal, no pun intended, stark honesty.
Yeah.
Where she's like, fuck it, I'm just going to I've had enough. I can't do it anymore. It just needs to bubble over the surface and fucking come out. And she just lets fucking rip. And it's, whereas, it would be very tempting just to see, again, at her father's funeral, let her break down, let's have tears, let's have an uncontrollable weeping, hysterical woman, blah, blah. But to have this, this just outpouring of pure character, for me, it was very unexpected. I've got to be honest. It's not something I'm accustomed to with this show.
No, it's very well handled, and to tie it onto the back of an act as well, so that it doesn't seem so. And as is the temptation in this show to just have her blurt it out straight to camera, they don't. They give her the Dreamcatcher style thing that she's making to ground it in an act. She's bringing this up now because this is jogging her memory, and because she's talking to her now daughter-in-law who needs to understand the dynamic of the family.
Yeah.
And so it works. Using that device brings us in, and using the nurse as our cipher into that with Kat, because we don't know what this fucking thing is that she's making either.
No.
So we're just as interested. And it just works. It works beautifully well. It's a top-notch scene. One of the best in the show to date, I think. It's fucking excellent. A plus performance, and exceptionally good writing as well.
Definitely.
So but moving on from that, this is where we get the scene with John and Mance, because I have some notes on it. Because we do get, even though it's a somewhat of a throwaway scene, those politics come into play here, and you actually credit to Kit Harington. You see it play across John's face as well, where he's talking to Mance, and he's talking about how, Mance is saying, how do you think you get all of these different people? You get giants, and you get humans, and you get everybody else. How do you get them all to walk together? And he says, they do it because I told them if we don't do it, we're going to die.
Yeah.
If we don't get south, we're going to die. And it's the look of realization on John's face of, shit, they're just like me. They're just trying to survive. Yeah. They're not evil. They're not wrong. They just we're keeping them out. We're killing them, essentially.
And we talked about this last week, and I think the end of the last season as well with John, is that he's now starting to question, because all of his life he's had, you're a bastard, and whatever you do, you can never have any honor because you're a bastard, regardless of the fact that you could be the most honorable fucking bloke in the world. And he goes to the Night's Watch, and he swears an oath to his brothers. And he nearly breaks it when Ned is killed, fair enough. I understand that he goes a little bit wayward, but he does the honourable thing. He goes back to his brothers. He goes north with his brothers in the season 1, and then all this time this is for the good of everybody. We protect the world of men from what's north of the wall, and that's the end of it. And so he accepts that, and then over probably the second half of the last season and into this one, especially the time he spends in camp with Mance and with Ygritte, he comes to start realizing that there are shades of grey, and he starts to question his entire worldview, and that will become important with him later on as well, whereby his blind acceptance gets him to a point where he has to go, actually, I've got this so fucking badly wrong that I'm now on the wrong side of it. Yeah. And this is the first time we get that with him, where actually he's going, yeah, something doesn't add up, something doesn't make sense, and I need to make sense of it for myself. I need to understand why people are saying what they're saying and why they're doing what they're doing. And by joining up with the free folk and all the rest of it, he's seeing a world that is completely alien to him, but at the same time, it's absolutely in sync with his own.
Yes.
And it's such an eye opener for him, and I think Kit Harington does a very good job, and we'll see that over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, it's one of those you kind of go. Again, a lot of other people could have had this part of their as their story rather than it being John, and it wouldn't have worked in anywhere near the same way. And I think it's something that's achieved very well. But I think the Kit Harington's a big part of that, because some of the dialogue he gets given over the next couple of weeks is pretty fucking awful, to be honest. But what we'll get really solid performances, and we'll get an understanding of the character which really comes across, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it's a throwaway scene, seemingly, but I think that is important to the politics of the show. Yeah, as we were talking about. So we get that. We also get our first explanation of Worgen. Yeah. Our first real explanation, which is handy because we're about to get it just full on thrown in our face in the next couple of scenes, but they just give it enough distance that they seed it here and then don't just jump straight in with the through line.
Yeah. Was the war, was that Mackenzie Crook?
I wondered that, because it looks like him, doesn't it?
Looks like him. Yes, it is. I've got the wiki page open in front of me. I was looking at him thinking, I'm sure that is, but I'm not quite sure.
I had the same thought. So, okay. Well, there you go. So, I mean, it seemingly isn't that important, other than we've already seen it happen a few times, and not really, even though we've known what it is, we haven't necessarily known the name for it. Yeah. So we've kind of paid attention and taken that explanation in, which is great, because in a few scenes' time, it's going to be very important when we have a discussion about it. So, yeah, and that's good. That's some nice writing to see it there.
It's one of the few things as well. I mean, we've had Three-Eyed Raven, and we've had Bran, going with his wolf-eye perspective, dreams and shit like that. So we've had that, but we've never had any sort of explanation or any understanding of it before. So it's rather than us finding out because somebody tells Bran, it's nice to be introduced to it in another way, in that respect.
Yeah, it really, really is, because as you say, we don't get the full-on heavy-handed explanation that we could have got, maybe from Jojen, yeah, later on. What we get instead is we get it subtly introduced here, because we're going to make the connection ourselves to Bran here, rather than have it spelled out to us. So
rather than have it shoved down our throat.
Yeah, so we take that leap, and then when we do get Jojen in just next but one scene, really, it feels slightly distanced, which it's the kind of deft touch that this show lacks.
Yeah, and there was a really nice bit as well, which it's entirely pointless, entirely throwaway, but they're kind of explaining it to John as to what wargs do and how it works and all the rest of it. And then Ygritte sort of just sticks her head around Mance's shoulder and goes, "You don't know what warging is?" As if to say, "What fucking rock have you been living under?"
Yeah, exactly.
As if it's the most normal thing in the world. It's like nipping to the shop to buy fucking bread. It's like, how would you not know something so basic?
Yeah.
And then obviously we'll get it with Bran in the next couple of scenes as well. And it's like, it's obviously like something that just bypassed Winterfell and everybody else knows about.
So it's good.
It was nice. And I mean, we had quite a bit of, we didn't have a lot of John last week, but we had significantly more than we had this week. But yeah, it's just nice to keep in touch with it. We see what's going on without having go, now we go here, now we go here, now we go here. It's just, it's the sort of scene whereby actually you go, Oh yeah, okay. So they are trying to move things along a bit. We are getting a bit more interaction. We're not just being told you've done this, and this is what's going to happen next. So it was quite a nice touch, I thought, for such a short scene. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, it was definitely. We get this scene then with Sam and Mormon and the rest of the brothers.
Yeah.
Again, kind of a throwaway scene, but for what it's worth, I think Mormon handles the Sam situation expertly. Like he really is a great leader, probably I think the best in the show at this point. Like he
apart
commands.
From last week.
Yeah, well, yeah, with less said about last week, the better. But he commands his men with authority, and he's fair, and just teaches them a lesson, and he shuts this shit down instantly.
Yes.
So that's good. Other than that, the scene's a bit pointless. I don't think we need it.
No, and I think we had enough with Sam last week, where he was clearly freaked out, and
and it's
fact
just
that he didn't do his show. And this is just kind of hammering home the point that actually, again, it's a bit of a regression, because in the first season he didn't belong with the Night's Watch, and they didn't care if he lived or died, and nobody was going to help him. And then we got through that. John got him through that, and then he progressed in season 2. And then the start of season 3, it's like season 2 never happened. And that seems to be a theme here at the moment, where they've kind of gone, well, if we just ignore season 2, we're all right. And I don't know, it's a difficult one, because, I mean, I said this isn't the first time we've said that in this episode. And it won't be the last in the season, I wouldn't have thought. But it just seems that they've regressed the character for no reason whatsoever.
Which is the case, unfortunately. We've already called the show out for it prior to tonight on several occasions, where characters will just act totally out of character and regress and change tact, and it's happening here because they just don't. The showrunners, regardless of who's writing the episode, they're taking their cues from the showrunners, and they don't understand the narrative through line. No. They just don't. They don't understand that these characters need an arc, and they need to go on a journey, and they need to fucking grow. They can't just be the same character week after week, and they can't just jump in and out of 3 or 4 different mindsets week after week. They need a logical, emotional progression.
Yeah. But the problem I have with it is that some characters have that. The main characters have that. It's
for the most part.
It's the ones you kind of look at as being secondary characters. I don't mean that disparagingly, certainly not with Sansa, but at the moment, she's not a key player.
No.
And so they've kind of gone, you know what? Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Same with Sam. Sam will become very important later on. At the moment, he's the fat one.
Yeah.
He's the grown-up version of Hot Pie. He's fat and he's useless. And it's just, there's very little thought gone into how they're going to evolve these characters. And I honestly believe, and we said this, maybe in the end of season 1 or maybe some point last season, it's almost like they haven't read ahead. They don't know what's happening with these characters, so they don't think it's important enough to have them evolving, and they don't know where they're going to end up. So they haven't done their due diligence, and they haven't gone, right, we need to get Sam from this point here all the way to over here. And along the way, he needs to do this. He needs to experience this, because that's going to inform that. And he needs to do this, so that's going to inform that. It's like they haven't done that. They've just kind of gone, oh, yeah, well, yeah, Sam's the fat comic relief. That's fine.
It's definitely like they haven't done that. Now, whether that's, to say they haven't read ahead is quite possible, but it's not an excuse. As a showrunner, they whether it's their own,
inside out.
Yeah, whether it's their own decision or whether it's something they're taking from the book, they need to know where their characters are going. And maybe they don't know for the entirety of the show at this point. Okay,
but I mean,
you would at least need to track the
materials. Yeah, the author of your source material is an executive producer. He's on hand to ask the question, what do we need to do with Sam? What do we need to do with Sansa to get them to where they're going to be? Because you've mapped out our first 5 seasons for us. You've already written our 6 seasons, where you've already written the book, so we know where we're going, or we would if we could be bothered to do the fucking work. But rather than that, can you tell us what's going to happen so we can kind of signpost it all? And it's just like they haven't even bothered with that.
No, but even less than that, it's just like, take it a season at a time. Where is he at the start of this season? Where does he need to be at the end of this season? And in order to know where he was at the start of the season, you have to remember where he was at the end of the last season. And you can't just take him back there. No,
that's it. And I mean, Ballbag and Dickface wrote the majority of the second season, or adapted for TV. I mean, they didn't actually write it, but I think they're credited as the writers on 6 or 7 of the 10 episodes. So they should
They
know
should
better
know.
than anybody else how their characters have got to where they are
Yeah,
and what to do with them.
yeah, you'd think so, but hey, you're giving them a lot of credit there. So yeah, so that's that scene. I guess, as I say, it's ultimately a little bit pointless, but it's okay. Our introduction to Jojen is good.
Yeah, I liked it.
I
Liked the
like it. I
scene.
like that it calls back to the earlier scene. I think that was nice that it was seeded. I like again some nice writing here. I like the whole "I'm unarmed," and then you get the beat, and he says, "It's my sister that carries the weapon."
Yeah,
And then there's a
and
knife at Oscar's throat. I like that. That's a really cool introduction to both
yeah,
of them.
and like Osha does well because I mean we get the thing where she's trying to tell Bran she doesn't want to hear about three-eyed ravens and this and the other. They've got enough problems in the real world without his dreams, and then Osha says Jojen wanders up. Bran is clearly confused to fuck, as you would be. Osha gets behind him and he says, "I'm unarmed." Oh well, that was a mistake. And then he says, "No, my sister carries the weapons." And all of a sudden, you get that noise, which I'm fairly sure real blades don't make when you pull them out of a sheath. But that's that sort of pinging noise, and all of a sudden she's got a knife at her throat, and it's absolutely again, it's pitched perfectly, that it's timed perfectly, and it works really well. And you just kind of get this bit where he clearly means no harm. He knows far more than he should, but he's there for a reason. And no, we know that because nothing happens in the show without a very fucking obviously signposted reason. But it's been set up, and it's been set up quite nicely earlier on. So by the time he arrives, we're not looking at him as a threat. We're looking at him as someone that Bran is going to become attached to, in some way. And yeah, it's nicely handled. And then I don't know if it goes straight into it or if there's a scene in between. But when he starts explaining what warging is and what Bran can do and how how he uses it and all the rest of it, and we get a bit more about Three-Eyed Raven. Now, the fact that Three-Eyed Raven is not the same thing, it's kind of different. And then, oh yeah, well no, you can't kill it because it's you. Well, that was in the dream sequence, wasn't it? But this whole thing, we're getting a bit more information about that now as well, because this is another one where it was alluded to in the first season, and then we got snippets of what it could be, but everyone contradicted the last. And now actually we're getting a bit of information as to what this is, because this is actually going to be a very important part of the story going forward. But thus far, it's been a bit of... again, we talked about it last season. They wanted to make a fantasy show, or they wanted to make a high fantasy show that was more based on drama than fantasy. But there's so much fantasy in the source, they have to reference it somewhere. And all of a sudden they went, oh, fuck yeah, we didn't do that last year, did we? We really need to pick that up this time, otherwise people are going to start calling us out on our bullshit and making podcasts and stuff. So yeah, it's nice that actually things are now starting to pay off. But again, I'd imagine timing-wise, it's because they've done in the book, not because the showrunners know what they're doing. But I mean, I think the scene was handled really well. I think that Thomas Brody Sangster does a really good job. Although I still can't get the image of him playing the drums with a 3-year-old on my head.
Yeah, he's not a character that I remember having a particular fondness for, if I'm honest, nor a character that I remember particularly hating. I remember him just being a bit naff, to be honest. But
the character of Nero was always more important.
Yeah, but then his introduction here I thought was great. So that kind of surprised me, and good stuff. We get the stuff then moving on. We get the stuff with Gendry and Arya. This is a good scene. The Brotherhood showing up is good as well. I'm trying to read my notes here. I can't fucking barely fucking read them. The one thing I can make out that I've written is that the arrow trick was boss.
Oh, that was amazing.
Yeah, it really was. That's right. I've got Gendry calls out Arya's decision making right at the start of the scene. He basically lays the fucking storytelling and the script work bare, and it's a fucking ballsy move to say, actually, it makes no sense that we should be here right now, other than you decided that we would do that, and I don't really know why you did, because you shouldn't have. And he says it more eloquently than that.
Yeah,
but
you could have done all this stuff instead. So instead of getting us out of Harrenhal, you could have killed the king. You could have killed Tywin Lannister. You could have done all this stuff. You had your 3 wishes, and instead you killed 2 guards. Fucking, I don't know. people who, in the grand scheme of things, aren't that important.
It's a fucking ballsy move to draw attention to it like that, because it's fucking true and it breaks the world.
I'd imagine it's come from the book.
I don't know. What I do know is that is a fucking ballsy move, and somehow, and I think I credit this to characters that we've now spent, near enough 3 seasons with, or 2 and a bit seasons with. Gendry's been in it quite a bit since the end of season 1, and we spent a lot of time with Arya. Yeah. I credit it more to probably the love that we have for these characters and their relationship and these actors as an audience than I do anything else. I think they pull it off more than the writing pulls it off. And I don't think it's as clever as it's trying to be. I think it's just flat out ballsy, and the cast managed to pull it off.
Yeah.
It could have gone very badly wrong.
Yeah, but I mean that's why I get the impression it's in the book, or it's been taken from somewhere, because again, our showrunners aren't, and I don't think they understand the nuance enough to do it themselves.
No.
I think they think they are.
Yeah.
But I don't think they've got it in them to actually do that. But then
you almost wonder whether perhaps some of the better writers amongst the staff are just I don't think that's the case for a minute.
No, I don't either.
But there's a little part of me
you don't shit what you eat, do you? You don't.
But there's a little part of me that would fucking love that to be true.
Oh,
if
yeah.
It just sat there going, do you know what? Fucking have this one, and you cunts are too thick to even realise we're taking the piss out of you.
You won't even see it's there.
No. So either way, they just about get away with it. The Brotherhood are introduced. Arya's response instantly is to threaten them. Bless her.
She's scrappy do, isn't she? At this stage,
she really is. Like there's compared to the 3 of them, there is what is a sizable force.
And they're all fucking armed. They all look really fucking mean.
Yeah. And she's just like, come on, I'll have you. Come on, I'll bite your fucking legs off.
Well, yeah, that's it. And it's almost as though, again, because of where she comes from, she comes from a position of privilege, that she has a bit of skill with a sword, but she's never really been in a proper fight, or not one that's endured anyway. And to be honest, she doesn't really know what the fuck she's doing. But she's got a lot of heart, bless her. And yeah, it's just that thing where you kind of go, if at this stage, you put her in that situation, and we see it later on. It's a play fight, and he's not trying to, he's not trying to injure her anymore than she's trying to injure him. But she gets disarmed really fucking quickly because she has no technique, and she can't wield that sword properly because it's too big for her. And it's almost like they kind of like you humour a child.
Yeah, and she is fucking hurt, physically hurt by it. You can see it on her face.
Yeah,
like it destroys her that she got disarmed that quickly.
Yeah,
and she portrays that very, very well.
For me, it's the face she's put when she just goes off to pick up the sword.
Yeah.
It's like, oh fucking, I can't believe that happened. And that's and again, that's like that's mortifying, because she's trying to sell herself as something or somebody of use potentially, and they just go, oh, fuck you, little girl, and off you go.
It's our reminder, just like we have a reminder that Joffrey's a spoiled, angry teenager earlier on. Just like we're reminded that Joffrey's essentially the fucking emo bitch of the show.
Yeah.
Here we get, let's not forget, Arya's a little girl.
Yeah.
And the face she pulls is a scornful little girl. That's what it is. She's pouting almost. She plays it very, very well. I like it. I like all of the stuff in this episode with Arya and the Brotherhood, actually.
Yeah.
Like I say, the arrow trick was just fucking boss. That was great. So that's all, it's all a good scene. We move on. We get a scene with Tyrion and Shay discussing Roz. Have I mentioned yet how much I love Shay? I don't think I have this episode. Not for about 10 minutes. Yeah. Just a great scene. Again, nothing really other than, do you know what? Tyrion hasn't been in this episode, so let's throw him in here. But, it's a nice little touch on their relationship. She's a little bit jealous, but then she also knows that, actually she does have the upper hand with him, really.
Yeah, and she knows that. But again, it does actually have a little bit of a purpose, because it does move things along the fact that she's making Tyrion aware that Littlefinger's poking around Sansa, that something is afoot, and that she's been warned not to trust him. Now he just dismisses it as a okay, well, who does fucking trust Littlefinger? We know not to do that, but it's important because obviously Shay needs an into that particular side of the world as well. So I think again, as a scene, it works quite well. The way it's executed, not brilliant. It was quite annoying. They did very well. It just wasn't particularly well written, I didn't think, and it was the fact that it was done in such a way that it was they were. I mean, we've had a lot of what do they call it? Fucking sexposition. The fact that they were building up to that, so instead of actually talking while they were fucking, they just did it while she was undressing him instead. It's well, you haven't really learned from it, and it doesn't really add anything, or it's distracting, and it's the whole point of it is that the information that's coming from the dialogue actually needs to be heard. But all people are going to remember is the fact that she's undressing a dwarf.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't thought of it like that, but yeah, I don't remember the fact that she's undressing a dwarf. But now you've said it, yeah, I can remember that she's undressing a dwarf. So
it's one of those. I mean, we've talked about it many times, but they do it so much that if they and I think this again, it's a testament to the maturity of the showrunners. If they think a scene is slow or is boring, somebody will be getting naked, and that's exactly what happens here. They're building up to having sex, because for whatever reason they don't trust what they're putting on screen or what's on the page. They feel they need to titillate people.
Yeah, it's a shame, really, because these two are better.
It is. Than that. Yeah, to be honest, I think most of the cast are. The majority of the cast are. It's just there's so little trust in them a lot of the time, especially in the sort of the slower scenes. And I think that's. I mean, we talked earlier. Some of these slower scenes, which are dialogue heavy, you get the best stuff out of. But I mean, I think these guys were sort of raised on Fast and Furious movies, so they don't understand the subtlety of telling a story. It's just action, or whatever you can get on the screen. Blow shit up, have stuff moving really fast, have fights, have gore. Don't rely on character work and story because people won't buy it. People don't want to hear other people talk about their feelings because that's just shit. Let's blow some more shit up, and so they don't trust their own product effectively.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's entirely fair for them, and maybe a bit unfair towards Fast and Furious.
I've only ever seen the first one, and it was shit. So fuck it.
So have I. I'm not a fan of those films at all. I've only seen the first one and whatever the Japanese one is.
I think that's the third one. But my roommate in the first year of uni he and a group of friends used to watch the first one over and over again. And I used to watch some stuff repeatedly as well. But there were a couple of things, and that was one that they always used to go back to. It's car porn, and I'm not really into cars, so I don't really give a fuck. I know I believe they've evolved into like fucking action heist movies and stuff like that since. Again, could give a fuck. I may at some point watch them if I've got cancer and I'm about to die and I've got nothing better to do. But who knows?
I've got no interest in watching them, despite just about everybody telling me that I really should, and actually they're very good. Maybe they are. I'll never know. I've got no interest in them.
Absolutely.
Or Vin Diesel. Or Jason Statham. Maybe in The Rock. I don't know. But
I don't know whether bringing somebody in 3/4 of the way through a 9-film franchise is enough to save it, to be honest.
No, but anyway, this isn't a Fast and Furious podcast, but yeah, I share your sentiment. So even though I have no love for them, I think maybe we're being a bit harsh on them, comparing them to Ballbag and Dickface.
Maybe.
Just maybe. So again, moving on from that scene, we get this Marjorie and Joffrey scene, probably the meatiest scene of the episode. No, because we've had the cat one, but this is another contender. On the whole, this is a very good scene. There is a lot I like in it. They're both very good. But there's a weird thing here where they're dancing around homosexuality and anal sex.
Yes.
And they won't blatantly call out either of them, which at this point in this show...
Yeah, given everything we've seen in this fucking show.
It is just weird to me that they decide to draw the line here.
And I think part of it, I mean, the first season and a half was softcore porn. And then I think we're at a point where a lot of the people like Emilia Clarke turn around and say, actually, no, new contract now. I'm not doing the gratuitous nudity, so fuck you. and this it starts to dissipate slightly. We don't get we don't get the gratuitous nudity in such quantity. We don't get the gratuitous sex scenes in such quantity because actually people are starting to get fucked off with it. And I think this is the start of it. And I think that part of it is sort of trying to increase this sort of sensitivity around it. Whereas before they would have, no, I mean, okay, the line with the throwing of cocks aside. There's
I was
very
just
little...
about to say, this very episode, we've had the line about a throne of cocks, and now all of a sudden, they won't say the word gay or homosexual. They won't even call him fag or a puff and be derogatory about it.
Yeah,
they won't. They won't address it. They tiptoe around it, and even weirder, they tiptoe around anal sex. Where 2 seasons ago we were getting Littlefinger telling Roz to play with her arse more.
Yeah.
It's
really...
I get it. I get it if we were trying to show that, and we want to draw the line. I get it, but this is dialogue, and you've already actually shown us both of these things.
Well, yeah, that's like. And it's, again, it's not having the faith in your product. But yeah, you're right. They do dance. They dance around it, and I think that this. We've talked about it many times in the last season, and I don't think it's the case in this one because it's not Ballbag and Dickface writing it. But it's like a scene of two halves, whereby you get the first bit where they're really uncomfortable, and Joffrey's on the attack, and he's making a point about Renly and about Marjorie and her duties and all that stuff. You know, that she's trying to be all delicate and demure and all that stuff. And then they go into weapon porn.
Yeah, because that's kind of the only excuse for it, isn't it? Is that maybe she's trying to play coy, and trying to be all sweet and innocent for him, but then she switches almost instantly.
Yeah. I mean, if this was season 1, she'd have been licking the fucking arrow.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, that stuff at the end of the scene where she's grabbing hold of the crossbow and obviously is quite phallic, and yes, we get it. It's supposed to be his cock and she's rubbing a handle over it. We get it, but it fucking works. And actually, for this show, it's surprisingly well handled and tasteful.
Yeah, and again, it feeds back to what we had before, whereby Cersei saying she dresses the way she does for a reason. She talks to the people she does for a reason. She engages with people in the way she does for a reason. So, we know that she wants to be queen, and she doesn't give a fuck how she gets there. She wants to be queen, and whichever horse she attaches her wagon to, she is going to be fucking queen, and we'll see that with her throughout the show as well. So. Yeah, it's just like, we've seen this with it, and it's been seeded earlier in the episode, which you don't see very often in this. And I think that's a testament to the fact we got a different writer this week.
Yeah, so there's just something about that's weird to me. And the only explanation I can come to is that Joffrey, as we said, is still a teenage boy and is quite insecure. Because honestly, that's where his rage comes from.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. So maybe he's a bit insecure.
And there's repressed edible stuff.
Yes. Right. So maybe there's that. So he doesn't want to think about, anal sex and homosexuality. And actually, he is a little bit awkward, as we've seen where he sort of rejected the whores that Tyrion sent him and ended up sort of torturing them. He is a bit awkward around sex. So I guess that's the explanation for him. And I guess with her, it's that she's trying to be coy and demure, and she won't talk about it because she's a lady and she's trying to be innocent for him. But then they flipped it too far the other way, I think.
Yeah, in too short a space of time.
She turned it on just that bit too much at the end of the scene. She went from 0 to 60, to use more Fast and the Furious car parlance in milliseconds. She was just like, 1 minute she's like, oh, I'm practically a virgin, I'm so pure, and we can do this together and grow together, and you can be my first, to like, let me grab your cock and rub it.
To a point where it goes off.
It's just
no symbolism there whatsoever.
No, but I like it. I do like the symbolism. I like the second half of the scene.
Yeah.
I actually like the first half of the scene as well. I just don't
The two of them together don't work.
No, and I just don't get how all of a sudden we won't say the word anal. I don't get it. I don't get it. And moreover, I don't get that she's so vague even when I mean it's clear that she's insinuating, that she offered her ass up basically. And she she doesn't have to say I offered him my ass and be that, that gutter about it, but surely there was a better way to address it than that.
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you? But again, it's Game of Thrones.
Yeah, so yeah, and it's not like she can come out and say that you tried to fuck her in a very uncomfortable place. So,
Sorry.
Yeah, I couldn't resist. I know it was a reach, but I couldn't resist.
No, it worked. It worked.
Yeah, I don't think there are Volkswagens in these days, are there?
No.
So okay,
I wasn't going to give the punchline. I was going to see if anybody recognised it.
Well, I didn't quite give the punchline away, but I mean, let's see. Hit us up if you get it, guys. I couldn't resist.
Yeah.
So yeah, stroking the crossbow, asking him to see it, all of that. She's playing him like a fucking fiddle at the end of the scene.
Absolutely.
It's Marjorie at her best.
Yes.
It's just weird from the start of the scene.
Yeah, it's just the juxtaposition of the two halves doesn't really work. It's very unnatural.
But it is a good scene, and it does give us good character info, and it gives us a good insight into the interactions between the two of them and their relationship. So all in all, I come down on the positive on this scene.
Yeah.
I just think there's some weird stuff. More like back to Theon, and I've just written "Suffer Theon, you little cockwomble." And again, I've written even so. Like this is fucking tough to watch. This one, it is tough to watch. It's literally torture porn. It's like we've replaced, like we won't talk about or show anal sex or homosexuality anymore, but fuck me, here's some gruesome shit.
Well, look, I'm not being funny. It was I was only half watching at this stage because I did need to be sick a little bit. Was it his foot they were driving a corkscrew into?
I believe so. Yeah.
Now, as somebody who is married to a woman who drinks quite a lot of wine, that scared the living bejesus out of me.
Yeah, corkscrews are not pleasant.
No. And like you see them in films and stuff where they use them on eyes. That fucking weirds me out. This, I just couldn't watch it. It was so uncomfortable.
Is it ducks that have penises like corkscrews? I think it's ducks, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
It's just a random fact that popped into my head at that point because we're talking about corkscrews.
Yeah, at least it wasn't a duck penis popped into your head.
Yeah, but I mean, they're designed in such a way that they basically attach and like a corkscrew so that they don't fucking fall out when a lady duck tries to get away and they can fly. So that tells you how grippy a corkscrew is. Grippy a word? Is that the right word here?
It is now. It's fine.
Yeah. So the grippy duck penis essentially is what they're driving through his foot. But it's fucking uncomfortable to watch. And just when you think it can't get any worse for him, there's fucking Ramsay.
Well, this is it, and I think that the whole thing that they're torturing him is, tell us the truth. What truth are you after? You haven't asked me a question. And it's because obviously they're torturing for the sake of torturing him. And they kind of get him to spill all this stuff, but he doesn't know what he's spilling. So he tells them what he thinks they want to hear, and he's repeated. Again, this shows how little faith, how little courage he has in his own convictions. He doesn't even know why he took Winterfell. He did because he could, but because of his arrogance, he didn't think he'd ever lose it because of nobody there. But actually, it turns out he's a shit leader, same as he's shit at everything else. And so because of that, he's like, "Oh, I did it for my father's glory, or I did it because I'm a ginger prick and I need to prove something myself. Oh no, I did it because I hate the Starks." Well, do you actually fucking know what you're talking about? Was there a reason, or was it just, I know, I've got this fucking harebrained scheme that Cletus / George Yoke will put in my head, and so we'll do that. And it's just like he doesn't even know why. There's no logic to him, and if there's no logic to him, there's no logic for anybody else. And it's just one of those, you think, just fucking shut up, stop talking at this point, because A, you're annoying, B, you're sobbing like a little bitch with a skin knee, and C, you don't know what the fuck you're saying anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure we actually needed the second torture scene with him, to be honest, because even though we get Ramsay's introduction,
although he's not Ramsay at this point,
no, we don't know.
But you could get them leaving the room, having tortured him some more. And then Ramsay comes in and tries to clean him up and all the rest of it. So we can have that without having the bit before.
Yes.
And again, we've talked about this so many times about coming in halfway through the scene. Because not everything that happens in every second of everybody's life is fucking interesting.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, could have done without this scene, even though we get to see Theon suffer. It's unpleasant, even though it's Theon. So
Yeah.
rather we didn't have that. This next scene in the tavern is where Arya gets disarmed. I think we got our
Yes, it
order a
is.
little bit, but anyway,
No, I knew it was late. I just
yeah.
jumped ahead a bit.
So we've already said what we're going to say about that essentially.
But it's good actually because I'd forgot. I mean, we have the scene whereby I can't remember his name. Paul Kaye's character, Thoros.
Thoros.
Thoros. So he said earlier on, no, come with us. We'll feed you. We'll let you go. And nobody's trusting of it. And there's a gag we forgot actually, which says no. One of them says no. Half the country's starving, and you look at this fat cunt.
Yeah.
And then the response is, well, maybe this fat cunt's the reason half the country's starving. And I thought that was a brilliant line. It was just so deadpan and so quick. I loved it. But so he's true to his word. So you have the scene in the tavern where Gendry, Hot Pie, and Arya are all sat there. Arya's giving it the big one. She's talking everybody up because she's like, she doesn't believe they're actually going to let them go. She's thinking that actually we might need to do something about this. So I need to sow some seeds here of, yeah, Gendry can use a sword and he's fucking strong because he used to be a smith and all the rest of it. And then we get into the bit where she says she can fight, her brother's taught her, and then Thoros disarms her in like half a second, and then raises a toast to her brothers and tells them to fuck off. And then the others come in with a man in a hood, who it turns out is the Hound, and he outs Arya for who she is. This scene was good. I like this scene for the main reason that when you get to see these characters again interacting with the Hound, I'd forgotten they'd actually met. I'd forgotten where the initial interaction had come, so I was quite happy to see it here.
Yeah, I remembered it when they meet again, but it was a stretch. I'll be honest, yeah, because it's a long fucking time.
Is it the end of season 6 or the beginning of season 7?
I think it is. I think it is the end of season 6.
It's when they go north of the wall, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a long time in the future. And I'd forgotten there'd been this interaction between them in the first place. And I'd forgotten how, because this will come up in the next episode, I'd forgotten how Arya and the Hound came to be together, because there's a whole arc with them as well. So this was interesting seeing how that came about. I was quite happy with that, because I went, oh, right, okay, that makes sense now.
Which, incidentally, we'll talk about it when we come to it. But next to Jon and Ygritte, Arya and the Hound, easily my favorite double act in the entire history of the show. The stuff with those two together is fucking excellent.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, it's not original. I mean, there have been so many shows and plays and books and movies about odd couples on road trips, effectively also thrust together with a common goal, and they fucking hate each other, and they do not know how to be around each other. But there's even though there's a sort of searing hatred between them, there you get a little bit of a sort of bond and a mutual respect comes through as well. So even though they may still fucking hate each other, they can be around each other. And the way that they develop, I think it's only over this season, and I don't think there's much between them after this season. No. But yeah, it works really well, and it's some of my favorite stuff. And as I said right at the start, Arya is one of my favorite characters. I said that 22 episodes ago. So yeah, seeing her getting more screen time, which she'll get in the next couple of weeks, is a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. And it gets us the chicken stuff, which is brilliant. Yeah. So yeah, it's the Hound. He outs that scene's handled really well. It's a real fucking moment.
Yeah.
It's good. It's
a nice mirror as well, because you had it in season 1 where Kat is in a tavern and Tyrion comes in and she's trying to hide who she is as well. And again, it's framed very similarly. The facial expressions are very similar, and she's outed in a very similar way. It's that she's in trying to hide, she draws attention to herself. And it works really well.
Yeah, it does. It's good stuff. And so then we move on to our final scene, and we're back with Jaime and Brienne. They are just brilliant together, as I said. And just like that, Jaime's fucking free.
Well, yeah, I mean, you get the whole. We talked about it earlier. I can't remember if it's at the start of the scene or if there's one we've sort of skipped over. But they're at a bridge and they're hiding by the side of it, and he says, "Oh, you've got a choice, because if we go in the river, we might drown, and if we go over the bridge, somebody's going to see us, might recognize us, and we might be in trouble." And then we see them on the bridge, standing in the middle of this bridge, and he said, "Oh, I didn't see that," and he's like, "Well, I didn't see you taking this option." And we're all right there with him going, yo, why the fuck would you do that? Because clearly somebody's going to see you. Whereas if you're in the water, you can hide under the bridge and be all trolly about it and stuff. So yeah, they go across, and he sits down and he starts bitching about his shoes and all the rest of it. As she bends down to drag him to his feet, he whips the sword out of her out of his sheath, and straight away he's oh, I always wondered why some knights carried two swords. The implication being because they're shit and they will always lose one. And that's not necessarily the case. It's just because he's Jaime Lannister. He's the Kingslayer. He's always in this situation. He's always going to get the upper hand. So yeah, he gets himself off the leash he's on. He's got this. His hands are still bound. So the fact he's wielding this sword quite as well as he does, it's an achievement itself. And they have a pretty good fight.
They have an excellent fight. One of my favourites, actually.
There are some pretty good fights. I mean, Brienne has some pretty decent fights. She has a good. It's a training fight, but it's a fight nonetheless with Arya much later on. But yeah, it's a good fight. It's well choreographed. It's shot well as well. So you keep up with the movement, because we've had some issues in the past whereby it's got away from them a bit, so they end up going to a wide. They've kept in very close with the action as it happens. That works really well. But I say you get this point where Jaime's trying to be a bit fancy. He's still trying to goad her. He's still trying to play he's still trying to do the mindfuck, and she's just like, no, fuck it. And she's there swinging, and she takes him down, swords in one hand, and she's just clubbing him with it, effectively clubbing his own sword with it. So he's gonna drop it, but then she stops, and so Jaime's looking at her and says, "What the fuck are you doing?" And then he looks over his shoulder, and we've got Bolton banners approaching over the bridge. And yeah, it's a really nicely handled scene. I really liked it, and I think that it's one of the better fight scenes they've done, where you are in hand-to-hand combat or armed combat. So we talked about the Blackwater stuff with the ships and everything. That was very well done, but this type of fight, they tend to have fucked up thus far.
Yeah, I think it's a different kettle of fish entirely. As you say, we do get a similar sort of fight in that it's one-on-one with Brienne and Arya, and of course we saw Arya learning to dance in the first season, and we will see Jaime spar with people in seasons to come, and we'll get Bronn and Tyrion and Jaime sort of sparring as well in seasons to come. And I think Jaime's always good in this kind of one-on-one sparring situation, just like it was with Ned as well. And the reason this fight works so well is because in amongst all of the back and forth of it, he's still, like you say, he's still goading her. And so we spend time with them emotionally as well. They aren't just two people having a fight. There is a mental battle going on as well. This fight is a living thing almost.
Well,
it's a back and forth. And interestingly, for me, which is obviously something I didn't pick up on first view, and I can't believe I didn't pick it up. But you've referenced it already, is that he is essentially already fighting one-handed here.
Yeah.
Which I'd like to think that's intentional, but it's definitely not, because they're not that clever.
But then again, I don't doubt for a second that's from the book. So I know it's the fact that they have this fight. This fight is going to be iconic. So they put this in because it's the fight between Brienne and Jaime. The fact it's interrupted, much like the fight with Jaime and Ned, it still has weight. So the fact you have that, and then we know what's going to happen in the next couple of episodes. With his hand, and then he will be fighting one-handed. So it's almost like George R. R. Martin has seeded it, and these are the kinds of guys who've gone, well, yeah, because of course he's going to be tied up, because he's tied up all the time. So yes, his hands are still going to be bound. So whether they've realised it's clever or not, I don't know. But it's nice. It's nice foreshadowing.
It is nice foreshadowing, and it does show us, even with his hands bound, and as I say, the speed with which he frees himself, just like when he escapes in last season as well. He is a dangerous man. There's a reason he's the Kingslayer.
And the thing is, for Brienne as well, this is probably, every episode there's reference to the fact that no, she's not much of a woman. She's more of a man. And she's in a man's world. She's for all intents and purposes, she's a knight. She's there fighting. She's protecting Jaime and all the rest of it. So she is always going to have that in the back of her mind. She's always going to have this thing. But is she? She knows she's technically as good. She knows she's as strong. But there's always going to be this thing, especially with somebody like Jaime, who has the reputation he has as a swordsman. she's always going to have in the back of her mind is that actually this might be one I can't win.
Yeah,
And
but she's also going to be wanting to take him for that reason.
She's going to be desperate to prove herself, and he's going to go out of his way to really play on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's so, as I was saying at the start of the episode, his charm is so disarming.
Yes.
That you do kind of almost forget that actually he's a snake. He's a dangerous man. He's like a fucking cobra.
You wouldn't buy a car off him. You wouldn't trust the fucker as far as throw him.
He's like a fucking cobra. He's just goading and drawing you in and just waiting for that chance. And when he strikes, he's gonna fucking take you out.
Yeah.
Like, this fight goes to the wire, and it's only by virtue of interruption.
Yeah.
That, even though Brienne appears to have the upper hand, like, you just can't help but think he's got something up his sleeve.
Oh yeah.
And it's only by virtue of this interrupted, I think, that both of these characters walk away from it here. But it is interrupted. It's interrupted in exactly the manner that Jamie predicted earlier on, even though it doesn't necessarily work out that well for him, which he said it wouldn't anyway.
Yes.
You kind of, there's still just that little look of satisfaction on his face of like, well, I fucking told you.
Yeah. Hands up, who saw this one coming?
Yeah, and it's so it's a good ending. It's actually, it's humorous in a kind of that kind of tongue-in-cheek way. We've had the fight; it's been good. We've got the suspense of Arya and the Hound, and then it kind of ends on this real kind of high note. Like, we get a bit of a giggle out of it. It's like, oh yeah, he did say this was going to happen.
Yeah, but also, I mean, you do have that, but you've got this. There is this threat and this story thread that's going to carry over to next week, so it does hook you back in.
Yeah, I mean, he raises an eyebrow at her, and it's again, there's few characters could probably get away with it, but he's just such a shit-eating bastard.
I mean, that is shithousery at the very best level. That's like,
absolutely.
Seriously, what the fuck have you done?
Yeah,
I told you this would happen. You did this, and now we're all fucked.
Yeah, it's great. It's a really strong ending, I think.
Yeah, I thought so too. I mean, a very, very different episode from last week. Tonally, it was a lot lighter.
Yeah, it's light years ahead of last week's episode.
Yeah, I mean, tonally it was a lot lighter. We got more out of it story-wise. We weren't just revisiting the same fucking bits from the end of season 2, which were the same at the beginning of season 2. So we avoided a lot of that, and we actually got some story. We moved along. We developed characters. I mean, I said the stuff with Kat and Talisa I thought was beautiful. And it just worked really well. And as an episode, it was, it worked far better. And it certainly, when we ended the last season on a bit of a high, but there were still problems. And I think that this episode has dealt with a lot of that. And we've moved on to a point now where we can actually say, right, let's get on with telling some stories. Let's find out what's going to happen next. Not just, oh, right, okay, so she's got dragons, but now they're the size of Volkswagens. Tywin's still a cunt, and Cersei's still power hungry, cock hungry, and all the rest of it. And it's just one of those, we knew all that already. So this episode takes us on a bit, and it's actually quite nice to just be able to sit down and watch it without going, oh, fuck, what'd you do that for? Yeah. Seriously? And just sort of sitting there swearing at the screen.
Yeah,
which is what I do most weeks.
Yeah, after last week, I was on a real low, I'll be honest, and I was not looking forward to watching this at all. I mentioned, for those of you that listen to the other shows, I mentioned on Better Than Mario how much I was looking forward to watching Suicide Squad on my day off. This was the complete opposite. I got this out of the way early doors this weekend because I could not be fucking arsed with it. And the episode drew me in straight away, and changed my mind. And it goes to show, just how good this show can be when it's firing on all cylinders. And look, but this is by no means the best episode either. I think, I've even said in my notes, I think it's top tier. I don't think it's the best, but I think it is top tier. There are one or two issues which we've addressed as we've gone through, but no howlers, not to the level that we have them. We've not really ranted this week.
No,
there's just been a few things that aren't that great.
Yeah, even when you've had the slower stuff, where we've had Jojen and Bran, sort of, where he's telling Bran about warging, about his powers and about his gift and all the rest of it. That stuff is a bit slow, but it doesn't drag. And I think the potential would have been to throw dialogue at that, throw exposition at that, and just make it really heavy. And had our friends Frat Boy 1 and 2 got at it, I think that's what we'd have had. So the fact we've got a more competent writer saves us a lot of that hassle.
Yeah, I agree. We get that introduction earlier, as we said, and it's just one of many kind of just classy moves that we get in this episode. As I say, the same thing as we talked about with Cat and the Dreamcatcher as well, and Joffrey and the crossbow. For all its blatant symbolism, it's still a lot classier than most of the shit you get out of this show. So this is a much, much better episode than last week. It's more focused. We don't spend any time pissing around with Daenerys and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Dragons and Batman. We don't get any of that because we don't need it at this point in time.
No, that's right.
It feels like this writer knew where we needed to be to move the story forward, and that's just what this episode does. For the first time in actually quite a long time, the story starts to take a big step forward. We get the introduction of some what are going to be very important characters. Jon starts to question who he is and what his mission is. Arya is now sort of rumbled and with the Hound. Who knows what's going to happen with Jaime because he's been caught again. Everybody's moving forward, which last week they weren't. They were just stalled. So all in all, as I say, there were one or two issues. Some characters took a step backwards, as we talked about, which was unfortunate. And there's still some stuff in here that could probably be cut from what is an hour episode. But all in all, it's way more focused. It's way better written. There's some really nice touches. There's some really funny stuff. There's a deftness of hand in some places as well, which I always appreciate. It's a good episode. Not the best, but certainly not the worst. As I say, it's top tier, and it's left me now on a high for next week, as opposed to the complete I couldn't be fucked after last week. Last week's episode really broke me, so I needed this.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think I'd say the same. I'm just a lot happier. I'm in a lot better place coming out of this one than I was last week. As always, if people have got different opinions on that, I think we've got something wrong or want to agree with us because stranger things have happened. Get in touch as always on Twitter at ddpodcastnet. On Facebook with the Double Down Podcast Network. You can go to our website, ddpodcast.net, where you can find all of our other episodes of this show, our other shows. Get in touch. But until next time.
Game over.